Welcome to Fields of Dreams. In this video, we are highlighting the 1990s team of the decade. It was an awesome decade of highlights and thrills. Baseball Tonight just aired, the retro ballparks were being built, and expansion teams came in creating the wild card system. This is a better way to allow each player to shine throughout baseball history, rather than the all-century team that left off many great players. In the future, we hope Major League Baseball can retroactively officially name their teams of the decade, like the National Football League does. We highlight the Hall of Fame talent that appeared at each position. Starting at leadoff, we have the second baseman, Roberto Alomar. In the 90s, Alomar was an 8-time Gold Glover and an All-Star each year in the decade. He was a 4-time Silver Slugger and won 2 championships with the Blue Jays. For his career, Alomar won 10 Gold Gloves and had a .300 average with 474 stolen bases, with over 2,700 hits. In my opinion, he's the greatest second baseman to play the game. Next, we have Wade Boggs at third base. I know people are going to bring up Chipper Jones, but Chipper came into the league in 1995, whereas Boggs gets the whole decade in. In the 90s, Boggs was an All-Star 7 seasons and a Silver Slugger in 4 of those seasons. He did get 2 Gold Gloves in the decade. All of his batting titles came the previous decade. For his career, Boggs hit .328 with over 3,000 hits. He was a 5-time batting champion. Batting third is his counterpart Tony Gwynn in right field. I know it's a close call, as some might have Larry Walker, but we will get back to that later. For the decade, Gwynn had 4 batting titles and was an All-Star each of the 10 seasons. He had 3 Silver Sluggers and 2 Gold Gloves. For the decade, Gwynn hit .344. For his career, Gwynn was an 8-time batting champion, 7-time Silver Slugger, and 5-time Gold Glove winner. He had over 3,000 hits and was the best pure hitter since World War II, hitting .338. Next, we have the kid, Ken Griffey Jr. in center field. In the 90s, Griffey Jr. was an All-Star each season in the decade and was awarded a Gold Glove each season. He won an MVP in '97, and in my opinion, he should have won in 1996, as he had the highest WAR and defensive WAR. For his career, Griffey had over 630 home runs, 10 Gold Gloves, 7 Silver Sluggers, and was a 13-time All-Star. If it were not for his injuries, then he would be the GOAT. Batting fifth, as he did for over 3 seasons, Barry Bonds at left field. In the 90s, Barry Bonds had 8 Gold Gloves, 7 Silver Sluggers, and was an All-Star 8 of the seasons within the decade. He also won 3 MVP awards within the decade. He had a .434 on-base percentage during the 90s. For his career, he had the most home runs, walks, intentional walks, and Silver Slugger awards, along with stealing over 500 stolen bases. Next is the Big Hurt, Frank Thomas, at first base. I know some people may have Jeff Bagwell, and there is a strong case. However, in the decade, Thomas had 2 MVPs and hit .320 with over 300 home runs in the 90s. He did have 3 Silver Slugger awards and was a 5-time All-Star. For his career, Thomas hit 521 homers and had an average over 300 for his career, while having an on-base percentage of .419 and a slugging percentage of .555. Next, at designated hitter, we have Albert Belle, who played left field, but for the sake of Bonds, Belle will be our DH. For the decade, Belle was the most feared hitter in the American League. In the 90s, he was a 5-time All-Star and a 5-time Silver Slugger. He should have won the MVP in '95. For his career, he hit 381 home runs and hit .295, but sadly had a career-ending injury. He averaged 40 home runs per 162 games, and he should be in the Hall of Fame. Batting eighth is Mike Piazza at catcher, as we should have very little pushback on this. Piazza ended up being a 7-time All-Star, winning 7 Silver Sluggers in the 90s. Piazza also won Rookie of the Year for the Dodgers. For his career, Mike Piazza does have over 427 home runs and had an average over 300, being a 12-time All-Star. He has more home runs as a catcher in Major League Baseball history. And batting ninth is Barry Larkin at shortstop. Larkin had the highest WAR among all shortstops in the 90s, with a 52.6 WAR. In the decade, Larkin was an 8-time All-Star and a 7-time Silver Slugger. I know people are going to bring up Jeter, but he only played half a decade, and Ripken, but he was featured in the previous decade. Larkin did win a ring in the 90s season and won an MVP in the 95 season. For his career, Larkin does have over 2,300 hits with a .295 average. He had 3 Gold Gloves and would have had more if it were not for the Wizard who had the most at shortstop. As a utility player, we have Larry Walker. Walker does have 383 home runs with a .313 average. He was a 3-time batting champion and a 5-time All-Star, as well as being a 7-time Gold Glove winner. Walker did win an MVP in '97, but my gripe is that he played in Coors Field with its thin air. He hit over 400 at home in 3 separate seasons in '98, '99, and 2001. And he wasn't that type of hitter in Montreal. He was great, but not quite that great. We have 3 starting pitchers this decade of the 1990s. The first pitcher we have is Greg Maddux. In the decade, Maddux won 4 Cy Young Awards. He was also a Gold Glove each year in the 90s. Maddux was a 6-time All-Star and won a World Series in '95. He led the league in earned run average 4 seasons. In the 90s, Maddux had a wins above replacement of 65.4. For his career, Maddux won over 355 games with 3,371 strikeouts and won 18 Gold Gloves. The second pitcher we have is Randy Johnson. In the 90s, Johnson won 2 of his 5 Cy Young Awards in the decade, as well as being a 6-time All-Star. He led the league in strikeouts 5 times in the decade. For his career, the big unit had over 303 wins and 4,875 strikeouts. He was a 10-time All-Star and won a World Series in 2001. He also dominated the following decade. The third pitcher we have is Pedro Martinez, who pitched for the Expos and Red Sox. In the 90s, Pedro won 2 of his 3 Cy Young Awards while being a 4-time All-Star. For his career, Pedro had 219 wins and a 2.93 earned run average with 3,154 strikeouts. He won a World Series the following decade and led the league in earned run average 5 times, while being an 8-time All-Star. The player who led all players in WAR was none other than Barry Bonds. He does have a WAR over 80, which is just remarkable, as it would have been slightly higher if the strike didn't happen. I also want to mention that Ken Griffey Jr. was an honorably second behind in WAR with 67.5, as he did suffer that injury when crashing into the wall in 1995. And when it comes to the player of the decade, it's also Barry Bonds, who also won 3 MVP awards in the decade. He could have very easily won 5 or 6 in the decade, as he led his team to first in 1991 and 1997, but the voters did not want to give it to him. Bonds led the National League in WAR 7 out of the 10 seasons, and was second 2 of those seasons. He finished the 1998 season with over 400 homers and 400 steals, so he was already the best in that era. The Sporting News had it right when they named Bonds the Player of the Decade of the 90s. I also want to mention that Ken Griffey Jr. was also named Player of the Decade by Major League Baseball's Player Association. In summary, an amazing decade of the 1990s. Bonds and Griffey dominated both leagues. Tony Gwynn was the best pure hitter since Williams. Boggs and Gwynn had over 3,000 hits. Thomas and Belle were great power hitters as well. This team also had great defense with Larkin and Alomar, along with the outfielders who had many Gold Gloves. And Piazza had more home runs than any catcher. The two pitchers had multiple Cy Young awards and had over 300 wins. This is my favorite era of baseball.